Unusual because I watch a lot of boob tube too. I love it. But this was particularly thrilling because it was unexpected, and this great performance was recognized by this particular actor's peers. And I guess we were all so delighted because we didn't realize, in the light of his history as a performer, that he was capable of giving a fine, heavy, dramatic performance, because he won his first fame as a singer. He is now turning his energies into his dramatic acting at full force. It's a new face to the acting scene, and a wonderful, warm, beautiful face for all of us. Mr. David Cassidy.
Thank you.
See? You see how happy they are to see you?
Boy, well, I'm just as happy to see you.
Well, it's
really.
about time.
Hey, well, thank you. Thank you.
I'll
Really.
tell you why. You've been tiptoeing around me for about 4 years. We've been trying to get you to come on the show, and I used to think it was personal. And then I found out you haven't done any talk shows.
I've never done a major talk show. I did...
You did David's.
Yes, I did his. I was about to say Phil, somewhere. I can't...
Yeah.
I've never done a major talk show. I did, you know, I've done interviews and things.
Why?
That's a good question. I just, whenever the opportunity came up and people would ask, I think because prior to doing what I've been doing the last week or 10 days, all of the week and 10 days, I just never really had any desire to, I think, reveal myself in that respect.
It's funny. Most people are nervous about doing an interview because there's so many speculative things written about you in all the magazines that are fictional and purely speculative, that when you get a chance to talk about yourself, you're not ready to do it. But you've got to be ready to talk about acting now, because that performance on Police Story was so exciting.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say.
Not only because...
Thank you so much, honestly.
David, I saw none of the advance publicity on it, so I did not know what that night. But I just happened to tune into Police Story because I happen to be very fond of that series, and I saw them. And I said, "Gee, he looks like David Cassidy, but that guy's so good, he couldn't." When would you learn to be an actor like that?
Well,
it means a lot to you, doesn't it?
It means an awful lot to me. What a lot of people don't know is that I started as an actor, and I think I was 17, and I was working at the LA Theater Company. And I left
before the Partridge Family.
Oh, long before, a few years before. And I left Los Angeles, which I'd been living out here, I guess 6 years or so. And I went back to New York. And I started studying acting, and you know, I got a part-time job in a textile industry. It was tough.
You did?
Yeah, I was
not
working
in a laundromat?
No, nothing quite so glamorous as a laundromat. No, you know.
The textile industry.
And I was going out on auditions, and I had a good time, you know, struggling for a week and a half, and no, it was a relatively short period of time, although it was whenever you're beginning, it's all relative. I mean, if it's 3 months or 30 years, you know, people will tell you there are a certain amount of dues that everyone has to pay, and I'm sure you know it, and I'm certainly sure you know it. No, I'm kidding.
But the reason you would know it, probably more than most people, is that your career happened so quickly.
So fast.
And it really is difficult to top yourself. You started out, and when people are screaming and cheering and tearing your clothes off everywhere you go, there's certain rewards, I mean financial rewards,
there are.
But your career doesn't get a chance to evolve as gradually.
Precisely, which is why it happened in such a bizarre way, because I really was an actor, and I really was pursuing that. I had done a lot of dramatic guest shots and things, and I never anticipated anything near the magnitude or anything like that. It was just an acting job for me to do the Partridge Family and to do the pilot for it. And when it all evolved, it was just as, I mean, I was just as dumbstruck as everyone else, perhaps more, I guess, because, you know, being at the focal point of that, you know, it's the old saying, you can't really see the forest through the trees, you know?
And it's frightening.
It really is frightening. And I lost perspective as to what I wanted to do. And I felt more and more that as I continued it, it kind of robbed me of my identity. You know, people looked at me and said, oh, there he is. You're the guy who
He's the one who plays the guitar and sings the rock song.
Yeah.
Eric, this is something we discussed once. You know, it happened very quickly. Chips, you know, grabbed hold of the public imagination and fancy right away. But the degree to which David was subjected to the heat
I remember.
was so colossal. I don't know how anybody's psyche can handle it.
Well, I tell you, I refer to it now as like going through the tunnel. You know, at least that's where it was for me, because I really lost touch with all my friends. Yeah. You know, I became very paranoid, which is part of the reason why I never did a talk show before. And I couldn't imagine myself sitting down here and trying to articulate what that experience was about. So what I did was I just stopped it all. I left. I left the business for about almost 4 years. And the reason that it feels so good to hear people responding in the way that you did and you did is because it was the first thing I had done in about 4 years.
Question. The David Cassidy that we knew from the Partridge Family, who was going through the tunnel at the time, and must have been going through his own particular kind of hell. Really, no matter how much heaven surrounding him, it's very difficult.
True.
Was counterculture.
Exactly.
Represented a lot of things with counterculture. Now you're playing a policeman.
Yeah.
How'd you turn that?
Can you see me as a cop?
Turn it around in your head.
This, I must say that the policeman, you know, the concept of being a policeman, as you know, and you're out doing, I could not, and I don't say this in any way, condescending way, because I just don't. I admire someone who can put on a uniform and assume the identity of that kind of a policeman. I can't.
But it took me a year before I started.
You felt comfortable?
I started looking at the uniform as a responsibility instead of a costume.
Yeah.
Really,
I hear that.
For the first year, I just whipped it on, and I was an actor working. Now I'm aware that what I'm wearing.
The responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
I'm beginning to feel that a little bit myself.
Yeah.
But the story really is much, I guess, like most of the police stories were. It's more a human involvement, and the opportunity that I have is the fact that this guy really, really cares about what's going on out there in the streets, and that's why he's doing it. He's a man of a great integrity, I think, and
will you be
a lot of policemen
portraying
do.
a character based on one policeman, or will it be on several different characters, a composite?
Well, it's really, obviously my character is a character that myself and David Gerber and a few of the writers have developed. But it was taken, the true experiences were taken from a group of undercover cops, most of whom I've met here and spent some time with, and it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, the education that I've been having, and it's just incredible.
Just to see the other side, right, Eric?
Right.
You really get to know those guys.
I really
You know
also,
what they could do. Sure.
I never, I suppose I was like most other people where my attitude was, I always felt like it was them and it was us, you know, and they were kind of like those guys, the bad guys, and my attitude was always like that, but it's really changed. I really developed a lot of respect for
that's the way it should be, you know, but it's hard to get